is someone that you are going to enjoy, most definitely. The first time I heard him speak, I had questions answered that no one else could answer for me. And he made it so easy and so clear. And in our meetup groups, many times, and in some of the Facebook groups and other accessibility groups that I frequent, PDF is one of the biggest questions. And since so many people are putting PDF downloads on their websites, so they're sharing them through email or they're posting them in their chats, it's important that these are also accessible. So knowing how to do it correctly, we go to somebody who we consider a good source, actually the best source. Like I said, when I first heard Dax speak, I was so excited because I had such perfect answers after searching for so long. So Dax is an award-winning Adobe certified PDF trainer who's been working in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry for nearly 2 decades, and he's really quite young, so that's a surprise. While leading and training international and regional teams, managing social media, and collaborating on corporate branding and visioning, Dax focuses on creating time-saving methodologies that streamline workflows and allow the story to engage the reader. His motto, change happens, so plan for it. So in addition to being a certified digital accessibility specialist, Dax is a member of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals and an Adobe Community Professional, where he utilizes his extensive real-world experience in problem solving to provide solutions for InDesign users who are simply at their wit's end. He's always energetic, his passion is contagious, and you are definitely going to enjoy his presentation. So welcome, Dax. We turn this over to you.
Wow, thank you very much. I apologize if it's a little echoey. Literally, we're moving as we speak into my new forever home. So my studio isn't quite set up, but thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And accessibility definitely is one of those issues where when it comes to the web, there's a lot of documentation out there. But when it comes to PDF, there's a lot of conflicting documentation, because usually what happens is one person inside of a firm is kind of deemed or dubbed the PDF expert, and they're tasked to go out and try to find all the information they can. And the problem has been is that most of the information you find is it changes over time. And as you learn more, I remember some things that I learned in the very beginning that I thought this was the only way and you've got to do it this way, that I found out along the way aren't the only way. And so I really love accessibility, especially document accessibility, and I love teaching, so it's the best of both worlds. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and do some share screen here. And I am going to share the correct screen. How about that one, I guess is the right one. Share. All right, are we seeing my presentation? We're good?
Yes, we are.
All right, so this is just my title slide, and we're not going to stay too much on this slide because we're going to be inside an actual PDF. This is not going to be a PowerPoint that's going to have a bunch of stuff that allows, you know, that we're going to walk through a set of instructions. We're going to do this. We're going to look at a real world example that I've kind of baked up and fix a lot of these errors that you get. Now, typically, you're not going to see all of these errors in a typical document. You're going to see 1 or 2 as you go. So please take what I'm about to teach you with a grain of salt and realize that hopefully some of this stuff is going to be stuff that you've run across before and maybe was a little bit of a sticking point for you. So we're going to talk about the title failed in primary language. Those are pretty easy to fix. No bookmarks. Appropriate nesting, which has to do with your heading structure, figures, alternative text for figures, nested alternative text, which actually happens quite a bit based on whether your source document is Word or InDesign. Tagged content failed, and tagged annotations. I know anybody who's been doing this for any length of time is frustrated with tagged annotations. We're going to fix the tab order, which is different than the read order. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to look at some table regularity, and then if we have time, we're going to touch on a little extra one that I learned from Kenny Moore from Tagged PDF. which is a figure with no bounding box. It wasn't one that I'd come across until just a couple months ago. And then I was like, what the heck? So anyway, we're going to talk about all of that. So without further ado, let's look at our sample document here. And I am going to take this slide and throw that over there. All right. So we have a document here, and let's go ahead and do view, page display to up. All right, so now we have a basic magazine layout. This is any corporate brochure you've ever seen. And the one thing you notice at the very beginning here is that up here we have our title, right? Well, this is the file name of the document and not necessarily the title. So of course, the first thing we want to do is we want to run our accessibility checker. Now, some people will just start going through the tags tree and doing what we all do, which is called walking the tags tree. And you just start poking inside here and making sure that everything selects, right? And that you have all of your items. But if for our purposes, we're going to go ahead and just do full check, right? This is going to give us, and you can see here, I know people's hearts are pounding when you see all those little numbers in there, because whenever you do your accessibility check, you tend to go, okay, I'm going to hit it. Hopefully there's nothing. And you press it, and then, you know, it's invariably you just kind of sigh because you'll end up with at least a couple of these red marks, right? So
I may interrupt just 1 minute, Dax. Did you intend for your presentation to be full screen? It's kind of small.
Okay, 1 second. It's supposed to be, let's see. Let me go back to stop sharing. Let me try to share again. Share. I'm going to share this one. Share. And then, okay. So this is as big as I can make this, because we're going to be inside these items over here on the left. There's no way to make these items bigger. All right, so the first thing we see is we have a title failed. Now, in most of these things, you can right click and hit fix on the actual elements. In title is one of those. So you can see here that you just hit fix. And then what it does is it brings up this title bar, and you see there's no title at all. So we want to go ahead and give this a title, and we're just going to call this annual report. I cannot spell today. All right, so we give it a title. Subject isn't read, author isn't read, keyword isn't read. That's metadata that you can actually add to the PDF, but it's not something that a screen reader is going to pick up on unless someone actually goes into the document and starts searching for it. So now that we fixed that, you can see title changed from a red X to a green past, right? Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is bookmarks. Now, if you look at this, this is one of those things that's frustrating whenever you're doing accessibility, is that it tells you right here, bookmarks passed. And we know that WCAG says that anything over 9 pages, so 10 pages or more, should have bookmarks. Why is this saying it's passed? I'm not sure. I wish Adobe would actually fix that so that it does trigger a warning, because if we look at our bookmarks, we can see there are no bookmarks at all. Okay, so how do we generate bookmarks when there aren't any? There's a couple of different ways. You can highlight text, and then you can create a new bookmark, right? And it's going to, whatever you've got highlighted on this side, it's going to put in as a bookmark. The problem with that is if you have a long document, it's a pain in the butt. So how do you do it for globally for a document? Hopefully, when you create your document, you're using styles, right? So you're not manually selecting something and making it bold. You're using a heading style of some sort. So what we can do is delete that and go up here and go to New Bookmarks from Structure. And we can see here that we have article, caption, document, figure, and then there's our heading structure. Now we could just do H1s. We could do H1, 2, and 3. You would hold down Shift and select all of those if you wanted to, but we're just going to do H1. So if we hit OK, it gives you a blank one. At first, you're like, wait a minute, what happened, right? So we're going to call this annual report. And if we just open this up, there are all of our H1s. So basically, it took this document and every one of the H1s, so there's our table of contents, and then to our shareholders, there's that one, and chairman's statement. So all of these treatments that are up here at the top, those are all being selected as bookmarks because we set them as an H1 in our styles. So that's why it's one of the reasons why it's super important to actually use styles, all right? So if we look at our next item, we go back to our report. The next one is appropriate nesting structure. That was in my top 10 list. And if we look at that, it's down here under headings, okay? So we see appropriate nesting failed. And if we click on this, it takes us to exactly where this is. So we can't see much from this view. Where we need to go is we need to right click on this and do show in tags panel. And when we look in the tags panel, you can see very clearly that's an H3. And one of the reasons we get this error is because we don't have the right structure. We need to make sure that there's an H1, then an H2, and then an H3. You can't just start in the middle without a previous heading tag. That's why we're getting this error. And so we can see we actually have a couple of different things going on, right? So our annual report here should be an H1, right? That would be the title of the document. And then this, if in fact we want it to be a heading, because I'm not sure it really needs to be a heading here, we would call this an H2. So now that we have H1 and H2, we can go back into our tags tree, go back into our accessibility report, and right click on this and do check again. And when we check again, it goes away. So there we go, we fixed that error, all right? So the next thing on my list is figures with alternative text failed. So if we look under alternative text, and there is our figures with alternative text, and look, we've got a whole bunch. And if we just start cycling through these, you can see over here that it's highlighted. It's kind of funky, the items that are the offenders, right? Now I will tell you a little trick. If you ever can't find one, like this one is a little hard, I don't know that you would notice this right away. If you zoom way in to a document and then you click on this, it automatically will take you to focus on that item. So like this little icon, if we look at that on the page, as you're clicking through these, you might not see that that's the actual item that is the thing that is the issue, right? So how do we fix alternative text? It's pretty easy. What we do is we right click and hit fix. Now here we have this little, this box, and you might be tempted to just simply add pie chart icon, right? And hit save and close. But you don't want to do that. What you want to do is allow this to do its work. We're on image 2 of 7, so we can go back to, there we go. So now we're on 3 of 7, and this is the image. This, I think we're going to say it's decorative. So we click that little box and we hit the next one. And this one is definitely decorative, and hit the next one. We could put sales and training, since it does have text on it, train ing. And then the next one, this one is this little icon down here. We're gonna mark that as decorative. And so you basically walk through your entire document, and then when you're all done, you hit save and close. Now, we missed one, which is, it looks like it's actually the bigger part of that pie. So we're gonna go ahead and hit fix and mark that as decorative and save and close. And then there we go. That figure alternate text now passes, right? But we have this next one, which is nested alternate text. So what is that? So again, we're trying to zoom in to figure out where we're going here. And there it is there. And we can see, now this happens a lot in InDesign. It also happens a lot when you're manually creating little graphics, and then you might group them together. And this one happens to be, what we can do is go to our tags panel, and then with this selected, we can hit the drop down and do find tag from selection. And that's going to drop us right into the exact place. And you can see here that we in fact do have a single figure tag, but then we also have another figure tag inside of it, which happens to be this one, right? So we probably don't want all of each of these to be this nested figure. So what we can do is do a couple of different things. One, we definitely don't want all these separate little objects inside because a screen reader is going to sit and read each of these. Now we could walk them through it and say 33 growth, 92 acquisition, 77 consolidation, but probably a better representation of this bar chart is to actually make it a figure. So how we do that, we go to our read order tool, and the shortcut to get to the read order tool is Control-Shift-U, and that brings up our read order tool. And you can see here that we've got figure, growth, blah, blah, blah. It's got some of this already selected. But what we can do is, since it didn't get it all, is we want to select all of that. And now we want to call it figure, right? And then what we can see is if we go back to that, let's go back to our warning here. And let's go show in tags panel. We can see that we still have this figure. What just happened? Give me 1 second here. So this is something that happens sometimes where you set something and then all of a sudden it jumps out of the tag tree where you think it's supposed to be. So now we're going to do find tag from selection, right? So I apologize. We'll find it here. I mean, this is real world, right? This is what happens. Sometimes you select something and it definitely doesn't do what you expect it to do. So where we find that is we're inside the content panel. And the content panel houses everything that is on that page. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk the content panel. I don't need to go through all those paths. These are all the paths of the table. And if you remediate for PDF UA, you understand that these paths all need to be artifacted in order for the document to pass PDF UA. We're going to find content from selection. And there it is there. So it's inside this container right here, right? So it's got all of the different paths and the text that goes along with it, right? So what we want to do here is we want to show in tags panel. And there it is there. So this was our nested figure error, and it looks like it jumped it up to up here, right? So now that this is clear, this is all empty, we can simply delete it because you can delete empty content containers, but you can't delete a tag that might have a blank banker's box in it. We call this little banker's box. So now that we're done with that, we have this figure here. We're going to right click and we're going to go to properties. And then we're going to give it some alt text, and we're going to say bar chart showing 3 values. 33% growth. And capitalization is not really needed exactly, but you know, the grammar police might get you. Acquisition and 77% consolidation. Right. So one thing to note here is that when you're writing alt text, remember that a period is a long pause and a comma is a short pause. And so that's why we put periods, just so that you give it a little separation. So it's going to say bar chart showing 3 values, 33% growth, 92% acquisition, and 77% consolidation. Right. So that is the description for this graphic, and we're going to hit close. Now, if we go back to our accessibility checker and we right click on this and we go check again, boom, it's gone. We fixed it. All right, moving on. Now we're going to go and talk about some tagged some tagged content. So let's look at right here. If we zoom out a little bit, you get a tagged content failed when you have content that isn't tagged. So inside Word or inside InDesign, you might have different layers. It depends. There's a lot of different things that can trigger this, but for whatever reason, if something was on a master page and it didn't get tagged as an artifact, you're going to find this happens. And here we can see we have element 1 and then we have element 2. Oh, and look at, so I couldn't see where this was initially, but if we zoom in again, use our little trick, it's actually the page number at the bottom of this page, right? So we know what we can do with that. So we can go here because page numbers are dictated by the page number in the document and not by the page number on the page itself. So we're going to go into here, we're going to select this and do find tag from selection. So I will tell you the shortcut key for this is I. I'm a big advocate of shortcut keys. So all I do is I'm going to right click here, or excuse me, left click here and go I. And it says selection was not found. So it's untagged content. So how do we tag untagged content? We go to go up to the tags tree drop down and click on find. Okay? And we can go find and change this drop down to unmarked content. And we're going to just search this page and not the entire document. We're going to hit find, and look, it draws a little highlight right around that piece of text, and then we're going to hit tag element, right? And we're going to tag this. We can't tag it as an artifact, even though that's really what we want to do, right? So we have to tag it as something. So we're going to tag this as a figure, and then we're going to give it a title. I do this when I have a long tags tree because that helps me go back and figure out where it is. So page number. And what that does is it gives me this little page number. It gives me a title. And if this were to have dropped it inside all of these, imagine trying to find that one single tag that it added. This makes it super easy for me to be able to find it. Now that I found it, I can right click on it and hit change tag to artifact. This pop-up here, it's just trying to find where you want to say it was associated on the page. So really none of this matters whatsoever. It just means if I had to say where it was, you could say bottom or right. It doesn't really matter. It's inconsequential to a screen reader. And then we're going to hit close and delete our empty tag. Okay. Now if we go back to our accessibility checker and we do check again, waiting for it to evaluate. There it goes. So that one is gone. So we can do the same thing from this one. So we can do, now here's the other way to take care of this. We can go show in content panel. Well, it's not found in the content panel. So we do the same thing. We can find it in the content panel the same way we found it in the tags tree. It's the same exact process. Find, and then we're going to find unmarked content and hit find. And you can see here that it actually did find the border box around it. And we're going to hit tag element, and we're going to tag it as a figure. We're going to call it, we'll just give it some gobbledygook too. And then we hit close, and then we're going to find it in our tags tree. We're going to find it here again. So I gave it gobbledygook, and now I can't find it. Well, we'll go back into the tags tree here. There it is. All right, there's our path. Right click, change to artifact, and hit OK. Delete our empty tag. Now we're back to good, and we go back into our panel here, right click, and do check again. And why did that not delete? All right. We're going to go check again. I will tell you why. So here's one of those things that is the bane of my existence. In the content panel, there is this form X object. And this form X object happens to be this actual content of the actual image. So what you can do here is right click on it and do create artifact. Hit OK. Now we're good to go. If we go back into our tags panel, we right click and do show check again. Boom, it's gone, right? So if it doesn't work right from the tags tree, go back into the content panel and do some more detective work. Most oftentimes it is that form X object because it's the actual photo inside of another container. I know that might be a little hard to get, but you have the container of the photo and then you have the photo itself. And so sometimes it needs, you artifact one but not the other, all right? So the next one, that was tagged content. The next one is tagged annotations. So what do we do for tagged annotations? Well, this one, so in today's course session, we're a little pressed for time. So we aren't handling how to fix multi-line hyperlinks, but we are going to fix untagged annotations, which is what these are. They're basically untagged hyperlinks. When you create a hyperlink inside your source document, it doesn't set the structure the way it's supposed to set it. So you get this tagged annotation fail. So if we go into the tags tree, we're going to select this right here. And then we're going to go into our tags tree and do find tag from selection. And then we look at this, we can see that we've got that heading. Well, it should be a heading, right? And then a paragraph, and then it skips. We don't have those links, right? So how do we get those links in there? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our find, and then we're going to do unmarked annotations and hit find. If I move that out of the way, you can see that it actually did find that box right there. And we're going to tag element. Now, it doesn't ask you what to tag it because it knows it's tagging it as a link. So then you notice we didn't have to hit next or anything else. It automatically jumped to the next link. And we hit tag element, and see, it jumped again to the next one. We hit tag element, right? And find complete. So now we hit close, and we look in here, and if we go back, now we have all three of those links all in one tag, which is not correct, right? We should have each of these in with their own text. So what we want to do is figure out where these are. Not that way. Find tag from selection. So we need to put this in the right order. So there's that piece. There's that piece. Okay, so this link, this one goes here, right? And then this one, which is our second link, goes here. And then this one is our third link. And that goes there. All right. Now, if we go back to our tagged annotations and do check again, boom, we're clear. All good. All right. Tab order. Now, tab order is something that usually happens when you have a document that has been mixed, where you have a bunch of different pages from different sources, and somehow the tab order was not set. Now, initially, I didn't know where to go to fix this other than to right-click and hit fix. Now, if I do this, it will go away, but I will show you where this is. So if you go to Organize Pages, and you right-click, and you go to, where is it at? Page Properties, that's right. So right-click, Page Properties. This is your tab order. And it's use row order, use column order, or use document structure. You almost always want to use document structure for your tag. So if we click this and hit OK, and then we close that organization, and then we right here and go check again, it passes. So like I said, alternatively, we could have just right click and hit fix, but I wanted you to see where it was, what was happening, so that you understood why it was doing it and not just right clicking and hitting fix, okay? So the next item we have here is our other elements alternative text failed. And if we look at these, we want to show in tags panel. It's not there. Show in tags panel, it's not there, right? So where is this? Show in the contents panel. It's not there either. So what do? Go back to our content, our panel, find, unmarked content, unmarked content, not comments, and hit find. Find next. What we're looking for, we're waiting for this one to highlight, because that's the one that's giving us the error. You know, guys, we have a total of 8 minutes left, and I don't want to, I want to get through this. But the idea here is that we need to use that find to go back and find this content, tag it, and then, oh, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going to move on. I'm not really sure what's going on there. You know, the internet bugs are here today. But the idea behind it, like I said, is to go back in and tag it as tagged content. So let's go and move on to our tables. All right. Tables are a big deal, and we often find a lot of different issues with tables. And you can see this table here. Let's zoom in so we can see this a little better. This table here has a bunch of merge cells going on. We've got some items marked in red. Now, this is actually a good way to handle this. If you have things that you want to mark in red, or items in red signify, this one says red items with asterisks are rated above projected values. So if you add the asterisks, then it's okay to have things that are red, because the asterisk acts as a secondary marker. All right, but when we're dealing with tables, this table header has failed. So I will go into show in my tags panel. There's my table. I'm going to right click and go table editor, or just press the letter Q. And you can see here that we don't have any headings at all. And that's part of why this table was giving us this error. So we can go in here and select these. Now remember, you can do this a couple of different ways. You can oh, it looks like we got a broken table here. So we're going to select those, and then we're going to right click, and then we're going to say these are header cells, and then are they column or are they row? So the header cells here, in this instance, these are dictating the columns. Now these guys on the side are dictating the rows. So we need to figure out how many rows or columns each one of these spans. Now I selected way too many, because these span 2, but this only spans 1. So let's deselect that really quickly. And then this one, and this one, right click, cell properties. These are heading cells. They are column headers, and they span 2. See where that says 2 right there? And we hit OK. This one is a header cell, and it is column. And it only spans 1 column, but it spans 2 rows. So we're going to change that to 2. And then it's going to give you this warning, and it says, hey, you're about to change the structure of your table. Do you really want to do this? My suggestion is always save your document before you start making structural changes to your table. Because if you spent the last half hour fixing a bunch of accessibility errors, you get to this point and it crashes, or it won't validate anymore, it's going to be frustrating. You'll only do that a few times before you really kind of get fastidious about saving. Okay, so we hit save. So now we can see that everything doesn't line up, right? And this is going to happen from time to time, where you have things that don't seem to line up correctly. Now, I will tell you, there is a tool that I love to use, and it is called Callus PDF Go HTML. And what this does is if we click this and we hit continue, it's going to open up a browser window, and it's going to allow me to see this structure and kind of figure out where my error is. So don't be overwhelmed with this structure here. This is literally the entire document. And it puts us in this kind of color-coded format so we can see very clearly the structure of our document. Here's a figure, here's what the alt text is. So let's go find this table. And here is this table, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, it is the table. And you can see here, we've got an issue. We've got a heading here, a heading here, a heading here, a heading here, but then this next one, everything got pushed, right? So that's not correct. So it looks like we've got an extra blank TD right here that needs to be combined with this one so that everything shifts left, right? Now there's no way you're going to be able to know that from being inside this table, right? This is why that tool is so important, because it allows you to see what's going on inside your row here. And there is that blank cell. That's that extra one, right? So if we delete that one, now look at our table automatically popped more in line, right? So let's go ahead and save that out. I know we only have 2 minutes. We're gonna go back to, can somebody confirm we do end at 11:40, yes?
11:45, and then you have 10 minutes for answering questions.
Awesome, great. Hopefully everybody's getting a lot out of this. I'm hoping that you guys it's making sense to you. Now if we look at this table, you can see that everything looks a little bit more normal. We don't have anything sticking out here to tell us that something's wrong. So now we can go through and know confidently that as we start to fix, back to the table, as we start to finish fixing this table, everything would be in line. Not sure why that keeps jumping. All right, so that's how you kind of troubleshoot table irregularity errors. Usually what happens is you start looking in here and you'll see that there'll be an empty TD. There'll be a TD with no little caret next to it, which means that there is no content inside that TD. And that's typically where most of the time your errors are going to be, right? So now, if we go back to our headers and we check, we right click and go check again, it passed, right? Now, the last one we have, if we can get to our bonus, is our table regularity. And if we look at this one here, this table here, this is one we often see, right? Because what is this really? This is 3 different tables kind of all mashed into one because they share a common heading. So really what you should have is a northern districts and offices by region, a northern districts and a southern districts table. But they've kind of combined it into one, so we've got these merged cells to deal with, right? So table regularity means it doesn't have anything to do with the headers like before. It has to do with the structure of the document. So again, we can use our plugin, or we can go and search through our table structure. We go right click here and go show in tags panel, right? And here's our table here. Now remember, what are we looking for? We're looking for kind of the low-hanging fruit, right? We're looking for that empty content, because that's typically, oh, there's a whole bunch of empty content right there. Well, what is that? So I see what's going on here. So if we were to right-click on our table and go to table editor, you can see here, TD, 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 all the way across here. So someone didn't merge this row. They're all separate cells. And we definitely want that to be merged just like it is down here. So how do we fix that? Well, that content is just a box with no content inside it. So we can just select it and hit delete. Now, when we go into this cell, we just need to make sure that we set the span correctly. Now, did you notice this didn't change? So we want to save this. And if we get out of this table, let's go to something else and go back into our table editor. Now it's updated. See that? You have to go out and back in for it to redraw the table. It can be super frustrating when you're trying to fix something and you look at it, you're like, wait a minute, I just changed that. Why didn't it change? So the next thing we want to do is set the span. So we're going to right click on this cell and disable cell properties. And how many columns does it span? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It spans 8 columns. So column span is 8, and we hit OK. And we know we want to change this. We're good to go. Now this is correct. Now, if you look over here, there's an extra little sneaky going on here. And if this you might not catch, but if you look in our plugin again, and that plugin's free. It's just a tool I love. I don't get paid for it. I'm not trying to endorse it. It's just something that I really is very useful. There are other tools. I know that Common Look and some of the other accessibility tools do have tools similar to that. And you can see here very clearly, boom, it sticks out like a sore thumb. We've got an extra TD in there, right? So it makes it super easy. I don't have to think about, okay, what's really going on in the tags tree. I can come here, figure out what's what, then I can close this out, go back into my tags tree, and see down here at the bottom, this is my last row. And yep, there in fact is that extra cell. I'm gonna delete it. Remember, this isn't gonna update until I get out of here. And then I go back. And now see, it is updated, right? So all I did, it updated when I right-clicked and went table editor. And that's when it has to redraw this table. All right, guys, the last one, it looks like we have 1 whole minute left. We're going to talk about this. Now, this one is called a figure with no bounding box. Okay, so a figure with no bounding box usually happens, and you can't generate this error on your own. It is something that just happens because you might have copied and pasted something inside Word, or maybe you placed it in a funky way. Maybe you copied it from a PDF or from a website. But what it is no bounding box. No Bbox means that there is no coordinate. And if we go into the tags tree, let's take a look. Find tag from selection, and here's our figure. Right? Here is our image, sales and sales training, right? And if we go into properties, and then we go into edit attribute objects, and we look in here, there's this thing called a Bbox array. And what this is the actual coordinates to where this sits on the page. So when this value is missing, it gives you the Bbox array, Bbox error. So all you have to do is close that out, figure out which image it is, then you're going to open up your read order panel, and then you're going to select it, and then you're going to call it a figure. And as soon as you do that, it's going to reassign the Bbox coordinates. All right, we got through all of the content. I am so excited that we were able to get through all of that. I know we had a few little snafus, but hopefully you guys have learned something more about accessibility and how to remediate PDFs. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Oh, thank you, Colleen.
That was amazing, Dax.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a few questions. Let's go to the list.
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okie dokie. Let's see what we've got here. Question, Dax, can you structure your document, adding the H1, H2, etc., before arriving in Acrobat? Microsoft Word, for example, has these common headlines, but not sure if this travels into a PDF conversion. This was questioned by Joe.
Joe, good question. And yes, inside, the only ones you can't really do it in are Excel and, well, pretty much Excel is a spreadsheet program. So setting headings inside a table really doesn't work. But inside Word, inside, now inside PowerPoint, you're going to use a template that already has those headings defined inside it. So that's going to help you there. But definitely inside Word and InDesign, it is absolutely best practices to set those H1, H2, H3 values and use the ones that are built in or create your own, but make sure that those names are H1, H2, H3.
Great answer. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Here's another question. Do you recommend doing the accessibility work in Acrobat or in the original document?
So always do as much as you can in the source. InDesign has tons and tons of great accessibility features built in. Word has quite a few. And always remember, though, that even though you saw in our tables where we fixed some things and it showed that it passed, but in actuality, the tables still need more work. So be careful that just because it passes that checker, that Acrobat checker, it doesn't mean that the document is compliant. That's why manual review is so important. It's so important that you understand what's going on, that you test with a screen reader, so that when you do all that stuff in the source, you get those nice green check marks, you know and you're confident that the experience the user is going to get is going to be a good one.
Very good points. Thank you so much. Another question. What is the biggest problem we cause on the source file side that if you could wave a magic wand and our editor would never add this feature as a document, what would it be?
Oh, you know, there are a couple, but I will tell you that InDesign is fixing one of them. It's when you use InDesign or Word, if you use WordArt, or you use InDesign to create these complex graphics with all these different pieces. When you export that into a PDF, a lot of times it generates like 100 figures all grouped together, and it gives you a lot of different errors. Sometimes it's nested figure tag, sometimes it applies the alt text to one or all of the objects, and it gives you a bunch of different errors. So if I could wave a magic wand, it would be don't ever use WordArt and use Illustrator to create your graphics to insert into your document rather than trying to build them inside InDesign.
Very good point.
I noticed a question, and this one was from Colleen. She said that you guys couldn't see the Callus plugin. So if I might really quickly show you what that looks like, I realized I shared my Acrobat screen, but not the actual window. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen one right now and do share. And then we're going to go back into Callus PDF Go. And then Sumner, tell me if you can see this when it loads. Can you see that now?
I can see that.
Okay, so in our table, let's scroll down. So this is Callus PDF to HTML. And what it does is it gives us our structure for our tables. At least that's what I use it mostly for. So I can see very clearly where errors are. So what happens is if this table is an irregular table, you'll see a little cell popped out here or something funky. It'll be super easy for you to figure out what's going on so that you can go back into the tags tree and fix it. And like I mentioned, Common Look and some of the other programs, they have similar features, but this one's free. And it's a great tool to be able to just kind of walk through my document. I can see there's a figure there. My heading structure all looks right. And my alt text shows up underneath my figures. So it's a great tool to use. All right.
Great tool. Thank you for showing that. We have one more question in chat. It says, newbie context question. How are PDFs consumed in alternative ways that we are solving?
Ah, good question. Why are we doing accessibility? Well, I will tell you that used to be our phones were not as powerful as they are right now. And you and I, who have vision, might go, you know, I would never open a 100-page PDF on my phone. Why would I do that, right? That's ridiculous. Who wants to sit and scroll? But imagine this. If I'm not sighted, what's the difference between hearing the audio from this device and hearing the audio from my PC? Nothing. It's the size of the machine. So it's very likely that a person who's not sighted would simply sit here and listen and swipe and go through their headings and figure out what that document is, just the same as they might do it on a PC. So when you or a Mac. So when you're creating all of this accessibility for a document, It's so that people who aren't using Cite as their primary means of digesting your document get as close to the same information as possible. And that's really the main goal of accessibility, to try to create that close to the same user experience, because headings and tables and lists and all this different structure, it's important. It's what helps us form that mental picture of what it is that we're trying to digest.
Very excellent. Thank you, Dax. I do have a question from a newbie. Is there an open source version of Acrobat?
No, and I will tell you that if you're going to tag, you have to have Acrobat. You really do. I mean, there are Common Look and Access 4, and there's a lot of different programs out there, and they all have different things. Some are more cost. I'm not even going to go into that, but there's some that are more expensive and some that are less expensive. But Acrobat is free, and if you can get to the point where you understand what it is you're trying to solve, you can get around the fact that Acrobat doesn't necessarily do a perfect job at making sure a document's accessible. It's all about that knowledge, and having that understanding is so much more powerful, because then you're not dependent on pressing the magic button to get one thing or another.
Good point. Thank you. You present a lot of very valuable information, and the education that people receive from you, Dax, I am one that certainly enjoy your presentations. But is there a course that will teach, especially newbies, how to do this for a PDF? This person writes that she writes a lot of content and she wants to make sure she makes it accessible.
I will tell you, the best source is LinkedIn Learning. So right now, Chad Chilius and Anne-Marie Concepcion both have really great accessibility courses on LinkedIn Learning that are very long, lots of chapters. They go through forms, they go through images and alt text and advanced documents. I will give you a small plug. So let me share my screen again. Screen 2, share. Wait, which screen am I sharing now?
There's your email.
All right. So I run a Facebook group called PDF Accessibility. I have a YouTube channel called PDF Accessibility. If you are struggling with accessibility, you can get answers not just from me, but from some of the Chad Chilius and Kenny Moore. They're all part of that group, and we help everyone. And if you want some bonus content, 7 shortcuts that are guaranteed to speed up your accessibility workflow, I have a video that details all those shortcuts you really should know, and that's on my YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, I personally stay away from using the term ADA, but we do have a question in the chat right now that says, can you do ADA work with the free version of Acrobat?
Well, so accessibility, I'm with you. It's a trigger. I'm not gonna flame anybody, right? Accessibility is different than ADA. Americans with Disability Act is what ADA is, but I hear it all the time. I hear everybody call Acrobat Adobe. That's one of my triggers. It's like driving a Ford, right? You would drive a Ford Mustang or a Ford Bronco. I mean, they're different, right? But anyway, so can you do accessibility work with the free version of Acrobat? The answer is no. Acrobat Reader does not have the ability to edit a tag string. If you're going to be doing accessibility work, you really should spend the $10 a month it is to get Acrobat and use it. I mean, if you're not billing at least 20 bucks a month in work, then, you might want to charge some more. but really, it's not that much cost. You don't need other tools besides Acrobat to do a lot of the accessibility work. We didn't go into Pack 3 or PDF UA requirements because we just don't have enough time. But if you can get your documents to a basic level of accessibility just using Acrobat Pro DC.
Thank you so much, Dax. We've come to the conclusion of the time we have with Dax this morning. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. And we're going to put any links that Dax provides us so you can continue to connect with him. We will put those not only in our Meetup group comments, but we will also put them on Twitter so that you can follow him. Always excellent information coming from Dax. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I really appreciate it. I always love accessibility, and this has been a great event. I've been watching some of the speakers, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen for the rest of the day. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you so much, Dax. Now I'm going to